Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Therefore, no current or prospective client should assume that the future performance of any specific investment strategy, including the investments and/or investment strategies recommended and/or purchased by advisor, or product made reference to directly or indirectly, will be profitable. Different types of investment involve varying degrees of risk, and there can be no assurance that any specific investment will either be suitable or profitable for a client's investment portfolio. No client or prospective client should assume that any information presented serves as the receipt of or substitute for personalized investment advice from the advisor or any other investment professional.
Welcome to the Bullinton Capital Report, hosted by Bill Bullinton. For the next hour, you'll receive information on current market conditions and trends that could affect your financial future. If you have a question, you can participate in today's program by calling 216-901-0945. That's 216-901-0WHK. You can also reach Bill by going to his website, bullingtoncapital.com. And now, here's Bill Bullinton.
Well, welcome back, everybody. Yeah, good to be here. I'm just thankful for being here some days, and pretty interesting stuff going on. It's just amazing how much news coverage we get, and how negative it's got to be. It's just remember, when you are watching the news, there's an old saying that I don't hear a lot of younger people saying much anymore, but back in my generation, when you were talking about journalism, the saying was, when it bleeds, it leads. So, and what they were talking about is, if there's some commotion, if there's some things aren't going right, that's what people like to, they're naturally attracted to that, I guess. So that's why you see so many negative news stories. You don't see a lot of positive news stories. And I have to tell you, when you look at how complicated the current living environment is in any country around the world, I mean, everybody's got a cell phone, they've got laptops, they've got computers, the internet, electric cars are coming up. Actually, they're all over the place now, but and the world's constantly changing, and you can't have all that stuff run even half as good as it runs now. And I know, I get a little upset when the internet goes out. My vendors, who I use almost exclusively online, that's been messing up more recently than it has in the past. But it's still way faster than it was 15 years ago, or even 10 years ago. And we're making progress all the time. And I think that's a wonderful thing. And progress is done a little at a time. Making progress involves an awful lot of effort. It involves an awful lot of trial and effort. And it's just not possible to get everything done perfectly all the time. And, but that's been the way of the world. And in the financial world, it's kind of the same. I'm looking at where things are financially. There are several ways to kind of gauge how cheap or expensive stocks are. If you look at the S&P 500, the Russell 1000, the Russell 3000, I look at indexes from all over the place. And in fact, a little bit later in today's show, I'm going to go through some of the performance over the past 5 years for all the major indexes, and I think you'll be shocked because the variance is huge. I mean, it's unbelievable. And in fact, the things that are supposed to be doing, should have been doing the best, actually end up doing the worst. So that's what you get for forecasting. But at any rate, I thought it was pretty interesting. We'll be talking about that as we go on. We're going to talk a little bit more about the fixed annuities that are out there. I have a favorite in that space. And I'm going to tell you why I like it so much better than a lot of the others. And but having said that, they're not for everybody. In fact, there's nothing that is for everybody. Most things, everything has a good side and a side that may be construed as not so good. Let's say a government bond. If you bought a government bond and you bought 10-year bonds a little over a year ago and you wanted to sell them today, you're probably going to have to sell them for less than you paid for them. Why? Because interest rates have gone up, and when interest rates go up, when somebody can get, let's say you're getting $30 a bond, that's 3% for yours, and now somebody can get $35 a bond because interest rates went up. Who in their right mind, except for somebody that just didn't know any better, would buy your bonds from you and give you $1,000 for them when they could go get $35 in interest buying, from a brokerage firm or direct? So almost nobody. And that's one of the risks of fixed income. And even though it's the government standing behind it, this is something I think they should start teaching probably right around the 7th or 8th grade. And if I had anything to do with the educational systems, I would start teaching finance in 7th grade, and I would go all the way up through high school, because you'll probably forget a lot of the stuff that you learned, but you know enough of the math by the time you're in 7th grade to be able to get a really good understanding of how most of this stuff works. And it really, the math involved is not all that complex for the fundamentals. Now, if you want to get expert, you're going to have to study a lot more. But you can become really good without having to become a professional or an expert if you understand how interest rates and how interest works, compounding. So that's a big one. And I hope one day maybe they see the light and start teaching this stuff to kids before they get out of school, because it is really tough. I mean, it's really tough. To be able to make money in financial markets, you're going to put up with a lot of volatility. That's just the way it goes. Even what I was just talking about, the government bond. Now, if you're going to buy government bonds, if you buy fixed annuities, or fixed indexed annuities, they give you a guaranteed interest rate, but normally it's going to be higher than government bonds or CDs. Typically it is. That's the situation it is in today. But what is the downside on it? Well, the downside is you got to stick with it. And if interest rates were to go up significantly over the next 10 or 15 years, and you've got a product in there that has none of them have, let's say 10 years, because the vast majority of them will have an 8 to 10 year period where you might have to pay a small penalty if you took the money out early. And I'm amazed at how that stops people, incidentally, from using annuities. I'm going to have to pay an 8% penalty. So what? If you had to have the money, first of all, you don't have to take it out. Most of them will allow you to take out, the vast majority will allow you to take out at least 10% without a penalty. So it's not going to be 8% on the whole thing. If you had to take out in the first year, it'd be 8% on 90%. So that's 7.2%. That's a whole lot better than being in the stock market that goes down 30. You know what I'm saying? Everything is under light that you're comparing it to. And so you still do have some liquidity there. Actually, a lot of liquidity. You shouldn't be taking out more than 10% a year. That's a long-term investment. And anyway, long story short, it's not as restrictive as people think they are. I think it's kind of like taxes. Some people, when you talk to them about taxes, they just hate taxes so much that they literally prefer to make less money to be paying less in taxes. And I've never understood that, actually. I probably have about 30% of my clients, I think, that are in that category. They just hate taxes. They like annuities because they're tax deferred, and you get to decide when you're going to take the money out and pay taxes on it. So you could wait for a year where you might have had a bad year and say, okay, I think I'll take some money out of my annuity, and it will lower the taxes that you would have to pay on it. But so it does give you some control that way. but I just think it's funny how some people will go so far out of their way to the point where they just rather have something in cash as to earn interest on it and then have to pay taxes on it. And it's kind of wild. But everybody, to each their own. It's not my job to convince you to think like I think. My job to help you do what you want to do as best as you can and show you all the various options that are available for you to choose from, and to be familiar and help you get familiar with the types of risks that are involved in that. You know what? That's the one thing I would have to say, looking back over my career, that's been most beneficial to myself and my clients is looking out at the risks, the unforeseen risks that you may not be aware of. That's to every investment vehicle's got risks to it. Some of them have a tremendous amount of risk. Some of them, the risk is not real high to the principal, meaning if you put $10,000 in, you might get $10,000 back, but you may not make anything. And there's kind of an inverse relationship. The lower the risk you take, the lower the long-term potential return is. I'd say that's true in most cases. In most cases, the lower risk that you take, the lower your returns are going to be over your lifetime. However, the lower the risk, the steadier the return. So that's kind of the payback for that. You're getting a lower return because it's steadier than putting your money into a bunch of stock exchange-traded funds or individual stocks. And I think I had mentioned, this week I was going to talk about something that, and I just didn't have time to prepare for it. It's actually, if you're going to pick stocks, how you might want to do it. There are lots of services online, and the vast majority of people don't have time really to learn how to read financial statements well enough to recognize when there's a good idea. So there is a website, and actually it's the Magic Formula website. I'll just give that out there right now. There's a guy by the name of Joel Greenblatt who's written a few books as a former hedge fund manager on picking stocks. And if I were going to pick stocks, if I really wanted to pick stocks for myself, I would just use that list and I would pick from those. Reading that book will help you get up to speed with what he's doing, why he's doing it. And I find that that's really important. When somebody comes in and says, hey, look, Bill, I want to do a retirement income plan, which incidentally is kind of what we specialize in. It's the retirement income planning. And I'm very fond of saying, you are never too young to start planning for retirement. Not a lot of people laugh about that, but here's the deal. If you got $1 million and you shouldn't be taking out much more than 4 to 5% at the most, okay? That's only $40,000 to $50,000 a year on $1 million, okay? And it's taxable. So it's $1 million is not what it used to be. And your poor kids are going to have somewhere around $5 or $6 million in their investment accounts just to be able to match the median income in the United States today. Think about that for a second. That makes those Social Security payments look incredibly valuable. Take your Social Security, multiply it by 12. Let's just say you get $20,000. Okay, $20,000 equals 5% of $400,000. So you got to have $400,000 to replace $20,000. Think about that for a second. I always laugh when people complain about Social Security. I'm like, man, they just don't know. They don't know how much capital it takes to replace the income that they're going out and earning. And I think if they taught this in grade school, probably around the 6th grade, that's when a lot of 4th and 5th graders could get it now. These kids are super smart. But anyway, if you had a course that they had to take in high school, one in junior high was where I think you would really capture a lot of the kids' imagination, especially if you can get them before their hormones kick in. Once their hormones kick in, it's a lot harder. But if you brought this up for like high school, the math is not super complicated. I mean, you can make it as complicated as you'd like. And that's one of the things I'm not real crazy about in my industry. They love to make this stuff super complicated. And a little later in today's show, I'm going to go through what you need to do for that retirement income plan. And because it's very important. It's very sad in the United States how many people get to retirement age and then realize that they're going to have to cut way back on their lifestyle. And it's tough. It's tough to have to look someone in the eyes and say, well, here's what you can expect to generate in income from your investments. And they look at that, and they know in the back of their mind that, it's going to be hard. And so that's hard on me. Think about, being the advisor that has to break that news to somebody. So it would be very helpful if, and I'm working on a couple things, by the way. I'm working on lots of things all the time, most of the time, but some tools that I should be able to make available sometime in the fall, fourth quarter at the latest, and tools just to go through and help you kind of gauge what that lifestyle is that you're aspiring to, how much money you might need to get there, and how much you need to save in your investments. And there are two main factors in a successful retirement plan, retirement income plan. The first one is understanding what it takes to maintain your lifestyle. You need to start that out. I mean, you get the most benefit if you were able to do this in your late teens. I think Warren Buffett, I read that his authorized biography, that guy was so ahead for his age. And he did that when he was like 17 years old or 15 or 16, something like that. I don't know. Anyway, I've only got a few seconds left here. You can call in today, 216-901-0945, if you'd like to talk or you have a question. This is Bill Bullinton. You can also find me on my website, bullingtoncapital.com. Got to take a real quick commercial break here. I'll be back in just a few minutes. Well, welcome back. Hey, you might have heard that vacation fixation commercial running, and that's actually a really good service. I've used it myself, and I have to tell you, I was introduced to it because one of my clients' wives started this business out of her house, and I believe they still work out of the house, but it was just a really pleasant trip that we had. I'd never taken a cruise before, and I'd always wanted to go on one, so I just called her up and said, okay, tell me what I need to do. And it was really simple. She took care of everything. All I had to do was show up. But anyway, that's the vacation fixation, so I give them a little plug here. I like it when small companies go out of their way to do a good job, because my dad was a non-union, not that I'm against unions at all, but he didn't graduate from high school. So he felt it was really hard to comply with all the union stuff. But he was a non-union carpenter, and he was self-employed, and he just had a small crew. They would build a lot of houses, garages, and room additions. And so I got to work really, really, really hard to see what that was like, and typically not a whole lot of money. So I'm very happy when I see a small business that works real hard, that's very successful at what they do. So anyway, don't know how I got on that tangent, but we were talking about markets, in financial markets. I mean, you look at what the small cap market did over the Russell 2000, the index. Over the past 5 years, that index is only up 8.3%. That is one of the biggest underperforming periods in its history. Now, I've got a couple theories about that. We can talk about that a little bit later. But and I have a little bit of money in there, and I think one of the reasons I only have a little bit of money in there, first of all, is that the smaller businesses today, they have to grow really fast. Otherwise, there's not a whole lot of interest in them. an 8 to 10% growth rate in top-line sales, most large companies would die for that. And most large companies don't have that growth rate. So, but the small companies that do have that growth rate, nobody wants to invest in them. And they've been largely ignored for an incredibly long time period. And I'm looking at so if I go up to, like, say, the mid-cap whose sales and earnings are growing faster than the average. Okay, there's next week when I come on, I'm going to have more clearer definitions for these things for you. But for right now, we're talking about mid-cap growth. It's an ETF, and it just represents an index, and it's the Russell Mid-Cap Growth Index. And it's up 41% over the past 5 years. Not 41% a year, 41%. So if you take that out over 5 years, it's a little over 8%. Compare that to the Russell 1000 Growth. Those are the big companies like Amazon, Facebook, Google, Apple, big, huge companies who are growing their sales really fast. Well, that one's up 75%. Now, for an awful lot of people, I hold that in almost every portfolio that we have. But I didn't think it was going to go up 75% over that time period. And it's been carrying a lot of the other stocks. And I'm looking at the valuation of those companies, how much people are willing to pay for them versus what they would normally sell for if they weren't overvalued. They are overvalued, by the way. Not by a ton. It's not like 1999 again. But you could see a time period in those stocks like you've seen in the small caps over the past 5 years where the returns are not nearly as high as they used to be. That's definitely a possibility. The S&P 500, by the way, over that same time period is up 51%, which is the second best. That's the second best. The S&P 500, incidentally, has 50% of the money in the top 50 stocks. So it's not as well diversified as you might think it is. In fact, it's extremely volatile too. So let's see, that was actually the second leading category over the past 5 years. The third leading category was mid-cap growth. If you broke the mid-cap down into growth and value, then the growth was up 41%. That was pretty good. The value, again, almost all things value or smaller in size didn't do nearly as well. The mid-cap value fund or index over the past 5 years up almost 18%. Not quite. That's pretty rough. At some point in time, what tends to happen with mid-cap and smaller cap stocks is when they do put in a good performance year, it's normally a really good one, or at least it has been in the past. And oftentimes they can close that gap between the other indexes inside of 6 to 9 months. And see, the problem with that is by the time people realize that these things are running, the run may be over. Very frustrating, especially if you're watch things as closely as I do. It can be horribly frustrating. And that's one of the things that kind of tricks the at-home investor. They look at these 5 and 10-year return numbers and they go, I'm just going to hold the ones that have done the best. That may work. It may not. And at some point in time, unless you've got a crystal ball that works, holding on to some of these other categories, it may not make sense to you in the short run. In this case, over the last 4 or 5 years, which is long enough to convince everybody it's going to stay this way forever, at some point in time, those companies, I fully believe, will close that gap somewhat, even if they don't close it all the way. When you look at traditional valuation measurements like price-to-sales ratio, price-to-earnings ratio, price-to-book ratios, all those things, they're significantly cheaper than the companies that have done the best, which makes sense because companies whose share prices have gone up more should be selling at higher valuations. They should be. And but it'll be interesting to see if and when that turns again, when the small mid-caps come roaring back. Next week I'll put the international markets in there as well. Those are some pretty major indexes. they haven't done well in an incredibly long time period. And it's really wild because emerging markets are made up of economies that are growing at 2 to 3 times the pace of the United States. I will say, though, that the pandemic has probably hurt them more than it's hurt us. They don't have the same amount of infrastructure we do. They don't have the same health care. So that part, could be explained, at least in part, by the fact that we've had this pandemic. Anyway, all that doesn't mean a whole lot. You should be able to get a good diversified portfolio put together. If you are having trouble, don't know where to go, don't know where to start, then just it's what I do for a living. I'll help you do that. I like to try to keep things as simple as humanly possible, incidentally. And I know a lot of this stuff that I'm talking about probably goes over the head of an awful lot of people. And I apologize for that. It's hard to speak to everybody because everybody's got such different backgrounds. And you ask me something about medical, and the only reason I might know something about it is because I'm getting older and going to the doctor more frequently. But I'm kidding. I don't know. I know nothing about a lot of medical stuff. So I am at the mercy of the healthcare system, just like a lot of people don't have that much of an interest in finance. It's boring. I mean, it is. For an awful lot of people, I can see them getting bored to death, and I do not blame them. It's a tough field. There's an awful lot of stuff that you have to know, but the main things to concentrate on are saving. Saving and investing. The saving part is more important, and it's the most important thing that you can do to teach your kids or your grandkids is to save money and put money away, because you can't get back all the years that you're going to get or going to have when you're in your 50s or 60s. Try to make that up. You would have to cut way, way, way back, and that's not always that easy. So if you're at that point and you've made it there, congratulations. I can tell you that the state of America is an awful lot of people probably going to work a little longer than they wanted to because nobody spoke to them about this stuff, and we didn't have the same kind of tools that we have today. I can remember when I first started in the industry, nobody had a computer. I mean, nobody had a computer. They used to call cell phones car phones. I'm really dating myself here, aren't I? But I remember the first car phone I had installed. You had to have it installed in your car. And it was huge. Couldn't take it out of the car. I had to leave it in the car. And but at least I could make calls from the road. And it's unbelievable how much progress we've made over this time period. And it's not over yet. There's so much more that we can do and are doing. We're already on track to doing. My kids are going to see some stuff, with electricity, and their lifestyles are going to be completely different than ours are. I mean, they'll still be eating food, they'll still be sleeping, but the way that they sources of energy are going to be primarily electric, and it's going to come from all places. I know in the past when I talked about electric and wind and solar, I would get some nasty emails from some engineers that used to work for Ohio Edison and all that kind of stuff. But it's not replacing that stuff. Has to be there, and it's going to have to be maintained because we're going to have to build out the new, more modern equipment for the increase in electricity. The demand is going up faster than the population growth in the country, and that's a good thing, because almost everything is going to run on electricity in the future. So it's going to create a ton of jobs. I'm just wondering how we're going to educate all these kids, come up and do that. Hopefully they'll keep supporting the school systems and secondary schools. And I think trade schools I know they're becoming more favorably thought of, and they should be. because we're going to need a ton of them. And if you want to make sure, if you want a kid who doesn't want to go to college, send them to electrician school. I'm telling you, send them to electrician school. You could send them to HVAC as well. That would be good. Buddy Joe out there, I know you're listening. He needs them. He needs good help there. He's a HVAC guy, and that's never going away. Not as long as you have sun and heat. You got to cool down sometime. But bottom line is, world is still changing, still evolving, probably faster than it has. You don't really notice it all that much because there's so much news on politics out there. It just kind of drowns everything out. But the advances that we've made and are making are going to bring that next generation the job opportunities. Their lives will probably be somewhat easier because the artificial intelligence, the AI that you keep hearing about, they're going to be able to do an awful lot of tasks that some people are doing now. So it's going to be really important that they get really good educations because they're not going to be able to come out of school with no training and make much more than minimum wage. So that's a challenge. I mean, it was kind of getting that way when I got out of school back in the early 80s. And if you had a technical degree, you do electrical engineering or mechanical engineering, there were lots of jobs for those. I mean, tons. There just weren't enough people there to fill those jobs. There are still lots of jobs in those areas. There aren't as many jobs as there were on factory floors back during those days. And during those days, you could work on a factory floor and you could make a really good living thanks to the unions. I mean, they've actually provided a lot for lifestyles of middle Americans. Don't know where that's going to go, but I hear I have a caller on the line, and but don't know who, so I'm just going to. Oh, okay, Joe, you're on the Bullinton Capital Report.
Yeah, hi, Bill. I have a thought about REITs, Real Estate Investment Trust. Can you explain a little bit about those things, what they are? I'm thinking about one that's right now paying about 15% dividend on it. And
I can tell you, yeah.
Yeah, I know, because the 15% dividend is awfully dangerous, is what you're going to say, or something to that, right?
Well,
here's
the thing.
What REITs are all about.
Yep. Well, Real Estate Investment Trust, that's what the REIT stands for. That's an acronym. And
right.
So REIT, Real Estate Investment Trust. There are tons of different types out there. I mean, there's got to be well over 1,000. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you want to send me the symbol of what you're thinking about, I'll look it up and I'll send you a report on it. Okay.
Oh, great.
Yeah, because now that you've brought it up, 12% is a lot, especially in an environment where CDs are paying like 4. If you get a really good CD, which by the way you got to check every 6 months because they give you a 5% rate for 6 months and then they drop it like a rock.
Right.
You got to see. You have to stay on top of that stuff. But I would be glad to take a look at it, and I'll send you. I have a database that covers every listed security, and the REIT is probably publicly traded, or owned by the public. And if it's not, then it's a private deal, and I can still get information. It's just a lot harder. But it's publicly traded. And here's what they do, by the way. They take money and they raise money, and oftentimes they'll go out and build projects or they'll buy projects that are already there. Hey, you know what? I've only got about 30 seconds. Can you hang on for the next commercial break?
I'll listen to you off the air, Bill. Thank you, sir.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you. Yep, this is Bill Bullinton right here on 1420. Got to take a real quick commercial break. I'll be right back. Stay tuned and roll the commercial.
Looking out my window, feeling the crescendo, sunset on a quiet sea. Sitting with the ones that I'll forever love, we're waiting on a flash of green. And even when the nights got cold, you have always held me close. You're the only rock that I
All right. Well, hey, we're back. This is Bill Bullinton. I'm here every Saturday morning from 11 to noon. And I have a guest coming on today, and I think she's on the phone now. And her name is Barb Anderson. Barb, are you there?
I sure am. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. Glad to be able to get you guys a little publicity there. Barb is the head of a charity that one of my clients brought to my attention. And I just want to, Barb, I'm going to let you explain what it is you guys do.
Oh,
do you wouldn't mind?
Sure, I'll be glad to. The name of the organization, the official name, is Another Chance of Ohio. But I think most people know it as the Free Store. And what we do there, we're located in Slavic Village right off Broadway on East 65th Street. And anything that's donated to us, clothing, furniture, appliances. Matter of fact, my daughter says we take everything from bobby pins to boats. And believe it or not, we have actually had 2 boats donated to us. We were able to one to a school and one to a nonprofit, a new nonprofit that was going to teach young people how to fish. And so those boats came in very, very handy. And they were glad to receive them for no cost. But anything that's donated, we make available. We clean it up, straighten it up, and we display it in our store, Free Store. People can call and come in and shop. For the clothing, we also put things outside for those people. And Bill, we've been in business for 30 years, and there are some people who shop there weekly who have never been inside the store.
Wow.
They shop
that's amazing.
from outside.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, now that I know, I have a problem with my lower back, okay? And so I have to buy new shoes like every 3 to 6 months, depending on how long it takes for me to break down. And I'm a big guy, so I'm heavy. I'll break the shoes down. I got a bunch of shoes that look new. I'll have to bring them over.
Well, they certainly would benefit, I'm sure, a few people, and that would be so gracious. We also have, outside, we also have the food pantry, and in the food pantry, they're allowed to shop all day because, of course, we're open from 10 to 2. However, people need to eat before 10, and sometimes they need to eat after 2, and so we put things in the pantry so that they can go in and assist themselves any time of the day and any day of the week.
Wow, that is so nice. Do you guys have a website?
Yes, we do. And it is Another Chance of Ohio. Look at me scurrying to find out what the name of it, because we have a new one, a new website now. And sometimes I can't remember the name.
Oh, we'll have you back on the show, so you don't have to. We can go over it.
They can do Another Chance of Ohio at www.anotherchanceofohio.com.
Okay, that sounds good.
And the new one, we'll make sure you get that too.
Right. Yeah, we'll have you back on every once in a while if you wouldn't mind calling in. That'd be really good.
I'm doing that. That would be a pleasure.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm going to have to come out and check out the store. Do you work from home or do you work in the store?
No, most of the time, if I'm not in the store, it usually means I'm out doing a pickup.
Okay.
Because we do actually have the means to do a pickup when it's furniture and appliances. We don't pick up the smaller things, but furniture and appliances, we do a pickup. Or if it's quite a bit, and sometimes I have my seniors who can't make it to the store, and I'll go definitely and do a pickup from them.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Well, that is fantastic. That is awesome. And so it's called Another Chance of Ohio.
Right.
What's the street address?
Okay, it's 2974 East 65th Street, and our telephone number there is 216-341-8733.
All right, that number again. I'm just going to.
Yes, 216-341-8733. And I did give you the anotherchanceofohio.com, but let me also website anotherchanceofohio.webflow.io.
Okay.
Webflow.io, yes. And so you
Great.
can always reach me. I look forward to coming back on the show and sharing some things with you. We're having our huge bike giveaway on the 20th of this month, and so we look forward to doing that. We know we have at least 50 bikes, most of them donated by your friend. And,
wow.
Yes, so we're looking forward to that.
Yeah, that is awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming and taking the time to come on this show. We'll have to have you check in with us every once in a while and let us know how things are going. And if somebody wanted to donate a bike, are they too late for that? Or
of course not. Of course not. We give the bikes away all year, but this is just our big. Since we have such a huge accumulation, we just want to make sure that people get a chance to ride and exercise during this summer, and so we want to make sure the kids get them before they get out of school.
Right. Oh, that is so nice. That is great. And like I said, I really appreciate you coming on the show. And that's Another Chance of Ohio .webflow.com, or is it just
.io.
Okay.
All
right.
Another Chance of Ohio. Yeah. Webflow.io. .webflow.io. And I look forward to talking to you again and again. And just let me say I have enjoyed the music. Okay?
Oh, thanks. Okay. That sounds good. I don't have any choice in picking it, but they do ask me occasionally, but it's really somebody else is doing that, but I appreciate you the nice comment. So
it's very uplifting. Thank you.
Thanks. Well, have a good weekend, and we will be talking to you soon.
Okay. Thank you very much, Bill. Have a great time. Okay? Bye-bye.
Yep, you too. Bye-bye. Okay, and I think I have a question from Marvin. He's got a question for Bill.
Yeah.
Marvin, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Hello. Okay. Bill, two questions. First of all, do you think they're going to resolve this debt ceiling issue? And number two, if it doesn't get resolved, what do you think the worst case scenario is going to be for the market and people's investments?
If it didn't get resolved, there will be a lot of volatility. I mean, you're going to see some fluctuation. The chances of it not getting resolved are relatively small. I can't tell you how many times I've actually gone through this in my lifetime. And they always use it to try to get, their way. And I don't think that Congress is actually dumb enough to actually go into default. Now, they may prove me wrong, but you'll see a whole new Congress and a whole new Senate should something like that go through. I mean, they'll just vote these people right out of office, but because it'd be very bad. I mean, but the reality is, by the way, they may settle for an extension and just push it out a little further. I could see that happening. If you start to get runs on banks from people just getting nervous, and I'm not so sure that that's going to happen all that much. I mean, it could. The Fed would have to step up and do the same thing they did with these other banks, and I believe they would. And the result of this all is higher inflation, because they will build back those losses into the future prices and interest rates, and those costs are going to get passed along right to us. So in the long run, the result of this is it's always been higher inflation. You think about how much things cost today versus how much they cost, 10 years ago. How much did they cost 10 years ago versus the 10 years before that? It's just this, it's like a broken record. It's wash, rinse, repeat. And, or in other words, wash, rinse, and repeat. So I don't know how far they'll go. I don't think anybody does. We have complete control and can fix the problem. They just have to agree on who's going to get what. And if they don't agree until the deadline passes, they can actually push that deadline out again. And so it's just what they're trying to do, and it makes a lot of people upset. And I get it. These things are important. One of the things you really don't want to do is have massive inflation, because that is just so hard to deal with. And you can deal with it. It's just not easy. And so hopefully they get together and are able to hammer some things out and come to the table. But, man, it's always been tough. It's never been easy. And every time it happens again, it scares everybody the same way it did all the other times it's ever happened. And so in the long run, the result is probably going to be they'll settle it. And in the long run, inflation is going to be the issue. But I guess I hope that helps. I don't. Nobody actually knows exactly how it's going to play out until it's actually too late to do anything about it. But
yeah,
I don't think it. Yeah.
I think I'm just.
I don't think it's going to collapse the stock market, though.
Yeah, I got it. Okay. All right, Bill. Thanks very much. I hear your show's coming to an end. Thank you.
All right. Yep. Have a good weekend. Well, been listening to Bill Bullinton for the last hour. Hopefully something has helped. If you have any questions regarding your own personal financial situation, please feel free to give me a call. The number is 330-664-0700. You can also go to my website. It's bullintoncapital.com. There's a contact us page. I do have to tell you, I don't know what's been going on since the pandemic, but since everybody's laid all these people off, you may be better off just calling 330-664-0700. And everybody have a good week, good investing, and good luck.
Just caught another edition of the Bullinton Capital Report, broadcasting every Saturday at 11 a.m. on AM 1420, The Answer. If you have a question and you'd like to speak to Bill personally, you can call him at 330-664-0700. That's 330-664-0700. Or online at bullingtoncapital.com. That's bullingtoncapital.com.
The preceding program has been paid for by Bullinton Capital Management, LLC.